IVM.
I want to thank Intel for supporting our show. Do you remember last year when we spoke about how the Intel vPro platform is built for business? Well, I'm glad to say we've kicked it up a notch. That's right, Intel is back with a new and improved version of the platform. The new Intel vPro platform lets you do more of what you want and less of what you don't. So it's better for you and for your IT teams, who really are the backbone of keeping your work-from-home experience easy and enjoyable. I can safely say that the new vPro platform gives you more enterprise efficiency with less constraints. Visit intel.in/morewithvpro, that's VPRO, to discover how you can get more done with less waiting. If you're listening on the IVM Podcast Android app, click the link that's visible to you now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Positively Unlimited podcast. And this particular episode is the last in this current series that I've been doing during this lockdown. No, the podcast is not ending, but for those of you who tuned in recently or who've not really listened to this podcast from the beginning, I usually do a cycle of A to Z, where A stands for something, B stands for something else, and C for something else. But in each episode, I share a perspective, a life lesson, and many a times a life hack that can change the way your day is flowing. In today's episode, I'm talking about Z for zigzag. You know, in school we were told, or rather we were taught, that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Well, a lot of us took that one rule very, very seriously. Have you ever noticed how so many of us are trying to find the shortest possible way to get from one point to the next, to find the straightest route possible to our goal, to our destination? And I wish it could be like that for us. So simple. Just keep walking straight from one point to the next, and I will get from one goal to the next. However, life has other plans for us. Life isn't always that kind, and I don't think it's meant to be either. Life, by nature, is a winding road. Ever wondered what will happen if we just accept that? Well, what happens if we accept it is that then we can start figuring out our pace. Think about it. When you are driving, you're on this road trip, you're going from one city to another, and you're climbing up the mountains. And there are these crazy hairpin bends that keep coming up. What do? Do you slam the accelerator? Or do you pace yourself? Do you control the speed with which you take those turns? Now imagine, if you could identify those bends and turns, if you could realize when you were climbing up a mountain in your life or climbing down a mountain in your life, and when you were driving down a road that was so straight that you can just put your car on cruise and enjoy the drive. Imagine what happens to you if you can recognize the road, if you can preempt the path, and you can adjust your pace just like you would shift gears when driving your car. This lockdown has really made us question the pace at which we were living our lives. Some of us were okay with that pace, that speed, and yet we were forced to come to a stop. So many of us had our lives put on a complete standstill. And then when it restarted, it's been at a slow pace for a lot of us, just about chugging along. But then there were some of us for whom from the beginning of this lockdown, it was as if life was coming tumbling down the mountainside, like it was snowballing into something else. For everyone out there who is listening to this right now, whatever you faced the moment this lockdown started, whatever shift of pace you experienced, know that there are lots of others who've experienced the same. As always, life didn't choose one speed for all of us. Life didn't choose one road for all of us. We've all faced different turns, and we've all found ourselves set off on different routes. Life is not linear. And that is one big lesson that this lockdown has taught us. I hope that you have learned it. If you haven't, look back. Look back at these last 6 months and think about it. Think about how the pace of your life has completely changed and how you didn't have a say in it. Now, I know that a lot of us have been trying very hard to make this year not have happened, almost as if we can make it disappear. I know that so many of us out there just wish that we could undo this year completely. And there's a lot of noise out there that's talking about canceling 2020 and not counting it. But you know what? Nobody, none of us can undo time that has passed. And that's a reality. That's the truth. But what we can do is think about what is left of 2020 from here on and ask ourselves, what is the pace of my life right now? And what would I like it to be? And how can I shift gears at this moment for the rest of 2020? I will also remind you while you are answering those questions, be careful of the pace that you choose. Be aware that whatever pace you may choose, life is not one straight road. So make sure that you are ready to drive through those turns, those bends, those roads that go up and down, those roads that are winding in nature as well. In last week's episode, I spoke about how we have these definitions of time and we need to relook at those. Well, if you haven't heard that one, you can go back to the IVM website or the IVM podcast app and listen to all my previous episodes. From episode number 99 to this particular one, I've spoken on topics that were relevant to this lockdown and to everything that we've been facing in 2020. But that cycle comes to a close today with this one. And starting next week, well, I have two pieces of good news for you. Good news number one is that you will get to enjoy 2 Positively Unlimited podcast episodes in a week. Yes, I'll be releasing 2 episodes every week starting next week. This next series of A to Z is inspired by a video series called Date Night that I did on my IGTV, on my Instagram. So the next cycle of A to Z that's coming up is going to be all about relationships. All our mindsets, all our patterns that are stopping us from creating and living the kind of relationship that we really want to, and from thriving in our relationships instead of struggling in them and just trying to make it work. If you haven't watched my video series called Date Night, well, head on to my Instagram. My handle is Positivity Angel and do watch those 10 episodes in time for next week's episode, which is going to be A for acceptance. Until then, watch your pace this week, guys. It's time to recalibrate. It's time to shift gears.
I hope you enjoyed that show. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Intel, for supporting us. Great week on the network. If you haven't been listening, why haven't you been listening? You should be listening. Rohan Joshi was on Uncle Please Sit, discussed the toxicity of the Indian pop culture. Really fun conversation to listen to. Rajiv Samant, the founder of Sula Wines, was on Cyrus Says. Again, I think that was a fun conversation. Also want to call out the season finale of Yuddha. Yuddha is our military history podcast. Definitely do check that out. It's a really great listen. And finally, I want to just remind you all that, it's a dark time, but if you need a smile, go check out the Smile India podcast by Shifa Mehta. It's in both English and Hindi, and I think that you will really enjoy the kinds of things that she's talking about there. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Beta, did you know 79% of all scientists in NASA are Indian only?
देखो, इंडिया में टैक्स सिर्फ मिडिल क्लास भरती है. Everyone is just enjoying free यार.
आजकल के youngsters are only interested in partying and enjoying. उनको देश की पड़ी ही नहीं है.
बेटा तुम बस शादी कर लो, उसके बाद तो you can enjoy life like anything.
I will tell you what this country needs. This country needs 15 years of dictatorship. That is the only way to become a superpower. See the Chinese, how much they've progressed.
सुनो, तुमने ये WhatsApp forward देखा?
So what's common between all of these statements?
They're all absolutely rubbish.
Fake WhatsApp forwards that spread like wildfire.
And statements that defy any logic.
We are here to debunk them all.
Way of family WhatsApp groups, worst nightmare.
We're what happens when you read a book.
Basically, we're just a bunch of guys who want to cut through the bullshit of everyone saying this, how it won't be true.
So that the next time someone confidently squeezes out some WhatsApp or Twitter BS, you can look them dead in the eye and go, Uncle, please sit.
So join me, Joel,
And me, Tushar.
every Mondays for a fresh new episode of Uncle, Please Sit.